Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Anna Clements, and this is Audiobooks with Anna, where we explore the fascinating world of audiobooks with industry experts. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, everyone, wherever you are. We're here today to chat with Don Baarns to find out who he is, what he's up to, what he's got to offer, and what he's all about. So thank you very much to everybody who's joining us. I will refresh the room at about past just to let them know what we're up to and what we're doing here today. But ultimately, Don, this is a conversation with you. Welcome to Clubhouse. Thank you very much for joining us on the sofa. I think our very first question has got to be, what's your favorite emoji?
Wow, for me it'd have to be winking or laughing because I tend to be a little bit sarcastic and I have to be very careful when I type because sarcasm obviously when printed very rarely works. So I have to be really careful. So I tend to wink or have a half smile so that try to give some sense of, hey, I'm not being serious because I'm not that serious of a guy overall.
It's wonderful. Do you know, I've asked this question so many times now, and we're still managing to get different answers to the favorite emoji question. So I'm fascinated by that. Probably says an awful lot about people's personalities as well. I may have to write a blog post about it one day with all the answers we've had. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Can you give us a little story, Don, about who you were before you became the Don Baarns we know? What's your background? What brought you to this?
Well, I started off playing music as a young guy. I went to recording school when I was 17, and I was kind of a nutcase, and I got hired by the recording studio, and I was a gopher. I was a janitor. I picked up cables. I was 17. It was for those of you who are in the States, there was a place called Motown in Detroit, and Motown had moved to LA about a couple years before I started going to this recording school, and the people that didn't move, the engineers, bought the studios in the Detroit area and kept them going. So I was working with people that had recorded hit records, and they taught me to cut master records. So anyway, I was recording and having a good time, and then I moved out to LA when I was 21 to play music. My interest in recording was I wanted to be a session player, a musician that records for other people. And I wanted to understand what was happening in the recording realm. And so that's how I got my job at the recording studio. And then I came out to LA and fortunate enough to study with some of the, literally the world's best drummers at the time. For people that know who Toto is, I studied with the three of the founders of Toto. I studied with their dad, who was a famous session musician back in the day, and been in LA ever since. So I've been here for 40 years. I have 5 kids.
May I ask, sorry, you said
Sure.
you were there as a session player. What are you playing?
I'm a drummer. So sometimes that is known as a musician, but my wife will dispute that. But I'm a drummer. And my first instructor was a Motown session player, so old Stevie Wonder tunes. I hear my original instructor. And then when I got to LA, I was fortunate enough to study with the drummer who had been in Weather Report. For those people that knows that, the drummer had been in Al Jarreau's group, some session players. But Joe Porcaro was my primary instructor when I got here to LA.
That's amazing. So what happened?
5 kids. Well, first I did a whole bunch of, I did play for a living for the first 5 years I was in LA. And my family grew and my financial needs. Now we have this fascinating parallel. When I was a young drummer, drum machines were coming in. And of course, today in the voiceover business, in the narration business, AI is coming in. So in the time that I was just working for a living at it, the machines were coming in to take over and really did take over a substantial amount of the commercial stuff that was being played here in LA. A lot of it, a certain percentage of it was being played on drum machines, and that was the big rage at that point. And I've watched that come full circle to where some of my peers who stayed in the business today are the leading drummers in the world. There's really a couple guys. Ringo Starr's drummer. So Ringo Starr still tours. Ringo Starr does not play drums at the world-class level. He does. I mean, he's an amazing drummer, but he also tours with a drummer, the guy who I knew very well when I was out here making a living at it is his drummer. So But those guys had to wait through a period where the automation was coming in and really caused some discomfort for many of us when they were young. I wasn't the best player among all of my peers at that time. I was up and coming. I was way above average. And then my family grew a lot larger. I have 5 kids. They're all adults today. And that required a lot more financial resources than I was generating as a musician. So I branched out into business, kept doing recording and things like that. But it just ended up needing much, much more financial resources in order to feed and clothe the growing family, and had some side trips and actually spent all sorts of time at the Grosvenor House in London in my 30s. That you might know that place.
Wonderful. Yes, yes, beautiful. Yes. What were you up to in London?
I was working for I don't know if you ever heard of Microsoft Excel, but at one point in my life, I was probably in the top 3 to 5 people in the world for expertise in that program for an automation. I did all sorts of work for Microsoft as an outside contractor, but I was working for an investment bank who happened to have an office there in London. And so I got to travel to London. I'm sure I stayed at the Grosvenor House at least 20 times for 2 to 6 weeks at a time, working on spreadsheets back in the day. So I was doing a bunch of tech
Fantastic.
stuff.
How did that come across? So that switch from drumming, LA, wife, 5 kids. You mentioned drum machines coming in. How did you start investigating technology? And that's how I appreciate the Microsoft Excel was sort of a such an exciting thing at the time that it everybody was sort of keen to find out what it was all about. I guess computers were exciting when they first started. I'm just curious how you fell into what sounds like another area of expertise of yours. Is there a connection?
It works out that I just took some side gigs, side hustles. I was playing music, so I was playing every weekend. And most of the time, as you become a pro, you're working at night. And so during the days, I took some side hustles. And it turned out that my wife and I ended up owning a small, over 5 years. My side hustle grew into making way, way, way more money than what I was earning as a musician. And we ended up owning a catering company. I used to get up at 3 in the morning every day for about 5 years, and which was just backwards as a musician. And we produced at the end about 500 lunches every single day, 5 days a week, and hated that job, but it paid bills and allowed me to grow the family. And over time, I bought my own computer and I started programming it myself. One of my side hobbies, I've always been interested in physics and tech. Light was probably before I started working on sound. I was always fascinated by light, and light works in waves for those who care about that kind of stuff. And so I've always studied light and sound just as a side hustle, for kind of a hobby. I'd read about it, and so I ended up buying a computer and automating my own little business. And at that time, Excel was not popular. Lotus was the big tool of the day. For those who don't know, it was the primary. And because I got good at using Excel for my own business, and Excel was not popular, one of the places this is the weirdest thing. I was known as the food dude back in my 20s, late 20s. And here in Burbank, California, I ran into somebody Arco needed somebody to do some automation because I had automated my whole company, my own business with it. Um, they were looking for somebody, and somebody recommended me, thinking I wouldn't get the gig. Otherwise, they would have subcontracted me. And I just showed them what I had done for my own business. They asked me if I could start the next Monday, and I said, no, I have my own business. And then about a week and a half later, I started working with them part-time, and I earned so much money. It's kind of like a narrator who goes out and they do a commercial. And on that commercial, they earn more on the commercial doing one 30-second, 60-second, 5-minute, 10-minute spot than they earn on an audiobook. I kind of had that kind of experience where working on this tech thing for Arco, I earned more money in about 3 months than I was earning most years doing the food stuff, and I didn't have to get up so early. So
Yeah.
I at one point told Lisa, hey, we are not going to, I remember saying the one thing, a year from now, we'll be out of the food business and we'll be working this tech thing. And I sold it, the food business, and moved over to tech about a year later. And this was in my 30s. I'm 63 now, so this is not exactly. It's been a minute.
Yes, an overnight success over the last 30 years of hard work.
Yeah, and it all ties together because I had been recording, and then my adult son became a sports broadcaster. He's 39 now, and I don't I'm gonna assume in the UK baseball is not big. Okay, cricket is slightly bigger. Anyway, so my son was doing broadcasting, sports broadcasting, and he's worked in the minor leagues here in the States, and in so doing, he started doing commercials during the live broadcasts. And he was doing 1,000, 2,000 commercials. And then companies in the area would say to him, hey, can you do a commercial for our company? You're doing the live one. So he would be, hey, this inning sponsored by In-N-Out. And he'd have some copy to read, and he would read it live. And then those companies started hiring him, and he called me one day and said, hey, I had this thing, this company wants me to do this. I don't know how to do this. And he knew two things. I had a recording background, and he knew my wife had a theater background. And so he said, can you help me? And then we should talk about Mom, because he had discovered audiobooks, but he was doing commercials. Can you help me? And I said, sure. What are you doing? And I had recorded in a major recording studio, but I hadn't recorded on my own computer for this. And he was using Audacity. I said, cool. Yeah, whatever you're using. I didn't even explore it. I didn't care. It was helping my son, kind of being a, reasonable dad. So I started learning Audacity at that point to help my son. And that was kind of how this got started. And then he's saying, hey, I just discovered this audiobook thing. This is really cool. This is my son 10 years ago. And he said, Mom would be awesome at this if you just do her engineering, because you know how the other stuff works, and she narrates. This would be great. So he got us started doing all this narration stuff about 10 years ago, and it's turned into our whole life.
Amazing. And so talk us through then, because most of us began on Audacity. Talk us through the changes that you must have made in your software investigations, I guess.
Well, I mean, first off, I never thought it was just all self-serving. There were a couple things I was taking that I saw a few of you will relate to this. 10 hours for every final hour that I had from the time, that I was doing it. This is after Lisa would record her part. And I did a couple audiobooks. Boy, if anyone wants to hear some really bad narration, I can get you some links. I just thought, I could do nonfiction. So I was kind of, it is the funniest thing. I hear people arguing about this, that, and the other thing, and I always think, yeah, there I was, So I totally relate to people just starting off and doing a lot of silly things, and that was me, big time. And so I did narrate some nonfiction books. Matter of fact, I think their criteria when they hired me after I did the audition was, hey, can Don fog a mirror? And if he can make the mirror foggy because he's breathing, yes, that's all. Because no one else would audition for the books that I auditioned for, and they were nonfiction. And but I was taking over 10 hours for every 1 hour of finished. And at one point, I went back to Lisa and said, "This is not sustainable. I can't do 10 hours for every hour we narrate." And that's what got me started saying, okay, Audacity's cool. Audacity's free. That's super cool. And because I had a tech background, working. In fact, when the Audacity group started Facebook, I knew the guy who started it. Him and I started our groups. I started the Studio One group within weeks of the Audacity group. We talked about it. I knew so much about Audacity at that point, I could have easily started the Audacity group if I had decided I wanted to do that. And there were a bunch of technical reasons that I switched from Audacity to something else. But so I started exploring other things 10 years ago.
Was that Paul Licamelli? He was my hero when I began.
When Paul and I were both around before Audacity was. Yeah, I mean, it was still is. It was being used. Him and I were talking about it. Had I wanted to, I could have easily started and been the center of the Audacity world. But I was frustrated with the compressor. I was frustrated with the limiter in terms of the sound quality of those two tools. I was frustrated with some editing. Now, we go back 10 years ago. It is advanced. It's people have succeeded with it. I'm not, I don't mean to diss. For free, one of the most amazing tools, has helped probably more people than any other tool that exists in this business, help people get started. And if someone was starting today, I might suggest a different route. But back in that time, man, it was the entry point that allowed a crazy number of people. So I knew Paul. We'd had these discussions back and forth about it. I remember when he modified the denoiser, and this was before I knew anything about RX. And I mean, so he's a great guy, super individual, definitely one of my heroes as well. But I was, if you look at the history of the two groups, the Studio One group and the Audacity group, you'll notice that they start within about a month of each other, and that was just him and I talking back and forth. And he was a little bit reluctant to start it, but I said, no, you got to do that. You're into it and doing it. And this was before he was on the team and all this other stuff. So he's a great guy.
Yeah, he certainly is, and has saved many of us. I think the Audacity is such a many years ago when I started, it was the thing you came across first online that was sort of this free and available downloadable software that was available to use. And at the beginning, it's all about not investing too much, until you know whether or not you want to commit. It's lovely to come across something that just works and that you can just use. I mean, there is so much now by comparison.
Yeah, it's a different world now, and now for under $100, people can have a different tool set if they choose to. Audacity, Audacity will always be popular. It's not going away anytime soon. The current team that owns it, I don't know how it's going to go. They're adding all sorts of music stuff, of course, and there's a new team now that's running it. That somebody bought it, but it'll be around forever as long as they keep it free. It'll do really well. And it was my foundation, and now I do say today, since you have so many options under $100, and some of them have some things that really make life easier for this business. I don't know if I would go back and do it that way, if I were starting now. Now, back then, I don't think there was any question. I was not going to pay for what Pro Tools was costing. Yeah, even though I knew how to record, I had worked in a big studio where 40 mics was the norm, so I knew how to record, but I just didn't want to spend that much money and the machines that you needed to run it and a bunch of other stuff. So anyway, I also wanted to help my son. Frankly, I didn't care. I wasn't evaluating for quality for anything. It was, hey, Donnie needs help. Sure, I'll do it. That was kind of my thing, and then I really, really dug in because I wanted to know how Audacity worked very well. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of information. So Paul and I were constantly talking back and forth. Hey, what'd you learn? What'd you learn? And so that's how we got started there.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm going to take advantage at this point because I feel like we've come to a Studio One turning point to say welcome to everybody who's in the audience. Thank you very much for joining us. We're chatting here today with Don Baarns to find out a bit more about him and what he does. A lot of us know him already. I'm sure that some of you have some audio questions for him and some tech peeves that you might want to query. We're going to have some time at the end to be able to come up and ask that. If you want to ask your question in the chat, please do, and I'll try and read it out as we go along. But Don, tell me all about this move then to Studio One. Did you feel the need to find something that was more suitable then as Lisa was recording and you were trying to get out the work that she was creating, or was this through Donnie? And because I'm aware, I don't know how far forward to jump, but I'm aware that you and Donnie have done interviewing, and I want to come on to all your YouTube and so much useful stuff that you've done. But take us back to the beginning of Studio One.
Well, so one of the things that Audacity is written by volunteers originally, and they did a great job overall. But I still had a background in music and sound production and recording, and I had cut master records, and I was in studios where they had just a huge investment in the tech and the sound quality, and so I had some pretty good ears, plus playing music and things like that. So the compressor in Audacity, I've never been all that happy with. The EQ is just okay. Some of the tools that you use that are core to hitting ACX specs and sounding great, it's just a little bit weaker in that area because they're primarily written by volunteers back in the day, which is just different than. There are people on so if you look at Studio One, you look at Reaper, there are people on staff getting paid $10,000 a month, $100,000 a year that went to college, and the only thing they've done for the last 5 or 10 years is they've worked the math for audio, and they're nutcases about how the details work. And so the compressor was the start of my journey to find something else, and then the workflow and some drag and drop things and interface stuff back in the day, especially. So first thing, for people that are using Audacity, man, you can keep using Audacity. I've seen some very successful people. Today, I believe there are better tools in terms of sound quality and ease of use. Uh, there are things in Audacity that are very easy, but they're not really intuitive. They're only intuitive because there's such a big, wide pool of people that know something about it. And a simple example would be turning down a little bit of audio. Everybody in the audience knows this, that who's ever used Audacity, it is brain dead simple to turn down a little piece of audio in Audacity. But no, so nobody thinks about it. It's totally counterintuitive. You go to the effects menu and you choose amplify, and then you put in a negative number, and it's piece of cake. It is so simple, and then it turns it down. The only problem is that turn down called amplify. If you take somebody who really knows nothing about audio production, they're not going to think of amplify as the tool you use to turn something down. So that's just, you know, and so other people call it de-amplifying, or they call it something else. But a new person coming in, that isn't really intuitive. So there are other tools out there are easier because it's drag and drop. If you want to turn it down, you drag it down. If you want to turn it up, you drag it up. There is even a menu command that says turn down or de-amplify or whatever. It's just built in that way. And there are a bunch of little things that work there. But still, when you get into something like the compressor, it's a whole different league when you go into these tools that were originally started for music, because they have different needs and they have an audience that, because they're paying something, Studio One's like $79 one time, but if they're paying something, they have a different set of expectations than free stuff.
Great that it's constantly moving forward, which does seem to take up an awful lot of your time, sort of letting us all know whether we should be upgrading and whether everything is compatible with the new whatever it is. Talk to us then about your business, because I'm aware that you, when I first came across you, I feel like you've always been the Studio One man to me, and at the time you were on the Facebook group, pretty much helping anybody who asked a question, and I was there lurking, trying to find out whether somebody was going to ask the question that I needed answered, so that I could find out how to move forward. How has that grown? It seems to have grown very organically and in a big way for you.
Yeah, it's kind of gotten crazy. So the Facebook groups that I manage today, so I'm an admin across 8 or 9 groups. 25,000 narrators are in the groups. Plus, I have a huge VO contingent that kind of follow what I do and that I'm paying attention to. So I'm in the VO and the narration space, bigger in the narration space than VO, but I do both. Um, and I also, my other baby. So first thing, it really comes, I'm an audio engineer, in background. I'm into sound quality. That's really I had 2 things I wanted to do. I wanted to cut the production time, and I wanted to have higher quality audio. And kind of in the beginning, those seemed to me to be contradictory. Like I either could spend more time doing stuff and make it better, take out more mouth noise and that kind of thing, or I could do it faster, just do a little less. I mean, so my focus along the way has been find tools that allow me to get the audio work done faster and be more competitive and sound better than anybody else. I wanted to do it for my wife and my son originally, and then today I do it for thousands of other people. And it did grow organically. While you think of me as a Studio One person, a lot of people do. That's kind of, they don't realize that I'm an audio engineer going back decades and that I'm into sound quality, but also because of my work in tech, everything I was doing with Excel was primarily directed at big company executives. And so you take somebody who was on the board at Microsoft. Literally, I wrote software that someone at Microsoft on the board, she would need to look at a report and say, how many copies of Excel sold in Australia over the last 60 days, the last 6 months, and compare that to what had happened the previous 6 months. And so it was both, I was constantly creating things for executives that would allow high-level executives to get a report, a summary of a whole bunch of data, and quickly be able to make an executive decision. And that mindset when I got into audio was, how do we make this easier? How do we have less time spent on the stuff that, I mean, I'm a performer at heart. I want to play music. I didn't want to set up drums. And I wanted it that my wife could walk in or anyone else I work with and record and have their focus primarily on the performance, because I know as a drummer, as a musician, that's the core. Setting up, I'm an expert at setting up drums, by the way. If you ever want to talk about that, I'm an expert moving company guy. I used to joke that I'm a musician and I have a part-time moving company. People thought it was a side hustle. They didn't understand I was being a sarcastic smart aleck discussing the fact that I would set up and tear down musical instruments every single day of my life, and I got really good at it because that was the part that I hated, but I did it and I wanted to be good. Well, the same thing in this business. I wanted to spend less time on the production, what I consider it's important, but it's not core. And so everybody who's listening, I mean, you all know this. If I have bad tech and I'm a great performer, I can get a lot further than if I have great tech and a crappy performance. That does not work. You can't do that. So I've always been in the mindset the great tech is a support, but it's super helpful. If I get in my car and it just works and I don't have to think about anything other than putting gas and oil in it, and I have a mechanic that does all the other stuff or somebody else that maintains the vehicles, then I can just get in and drive where I'm going, and I don't think about, oh, is the car going to work today? Does it have enough gas? Maybe I had an assistant to put gas in the car and oil and takes care of all the maintenance. I just get in and drive. Well, that's kind of how I was trying to do. So Studio One is my baby. My other one is RX. I met the developer, the guy who wrote the core of RX in 2013, and we've corresponded ever since. I'm a relationship individual, and I built a relationship with the guy who wrote the core of RX. The mouth declicker exists because of me and my wife. I was spending so much time editing her stuff to get high quality sound that the mouth declicker was born because of conversations I had with the developer. The guy today is the lead developer at Isotope for DSP, for digital signal processing, for all sorts of cool stuff. He does amazing work. He's a math genius, forgot more than I've ever known about audio. And he's one of my mentors and a guy that I turn to ask questions about how to high level audio work and repair and making audio better in less time and upcoming tools. I've been on the beta for that since 2014, version 4 of RX. So that's another one of my passions, is just finding tools that allow my wife to press one button. I have to make one thing clear. My wife homeschooled 5 kids from kindergarten through until they went to college. She's brilliant, insanely smart. She could learn anything she wants because she needed to do that to homeschool. And at the same time, when it comes to audio, she has a theater background, a degree in theater, and did community theater before that, has read to her kids her whole life. She's really into all that kind of stuff. She could care less about the tech. She does not want to learn about it. Her comment when I said, she'll ask me a question. It frustrates me. She'll say, hey, a question. And I'm thinking, I had a 3-minute video on that I put out 6 months ago. You could have known this easily. Instead, you've been doing this workaround for the last 3 months instead, because sometimes she doesn't ask me. And I just like, you could have watched my video. I used to say that. I'm not so dumb anymore. And she'd go, you know what? If I want to know about it, I'll ask you. And and at first I was really kind of ticked off about that. And later it was like, oh, she really doesn't care about this stuff in terms of she wants to know enough to be productive. And the rest of it is about her acting. And I, at some point, had the epiphany, oh, hey, that's like me playing drums. I didn't care about moving crap around. I cared about how I was performing. And that's exactly where everybody else is. And so everything I'm doing around this whole business is about how do people perform better and forget about the tech. And my job is to make it easy for everybody else to forget about the tech. How do you like that for a 4-hour discussion on something?
I'm slightly fascinated. I want to ask you to list for us some of the courses that you offer and some of the so much of the stuff that you do before we even get on to the whole YouTube and the videos and the interviews and so on. Um, can I ask what drives you to the expertise that you seem to chase? You seem to everything you do, you seem to do very, very well. Is that a personality trait?
I grew up really poor with a single mom. When I was young, I learned to light a furnace. First off, OSHA or anybody who's safety minded would probably have my mom in jail right now if they knew. She didn't even know I was doing this stuff. As a little kid, when our furnace would break, we lived in Michigan. I learned to fix a furnace probably when I was 12, 13. And I look back at stuff. I used to open this furnace, and in the old days, they were not safe. And I knew how to relight the pilot light. I learned about doing plumbing and drywall and electrical. I'm surprised my house didn't burn down when I look back because I didn't know what I was doing, but I would go to the library and get Time Life books and learn how to do something from a book. So some of it is just my upbringing was I have an unbelievably great 84-year-old mom who at that time was a single mom. But when things broke around our house, I either fixed them. We didn't have enough money. My mom, in order for me to play hockey one year, went back on two house payments. Now, back in the day, you could go to your bank and tell them you're going back. I mean, I don't know. I just look back. My mom was amazing. And so I learned to fix things when I was young. And in terms of chasing excellence, I have other things I want to do in life. And so I want to minimize the production time because I want to go out and do dog training, hang out. I just went and helped my one of my adult sons install his dishwasher, and I like physics and fixing things and helping people. And I'm working on dog training, and pickleball is my current passion. But I like doing things at a world class level. Some of it's I got really lucky and had a guy who was playing Motown session stuff, and he was my everything I do well as a mentor or a coach today comes out of a gentleman named Gene Stewart. He's my foundation. He's no longer with us. He was just an unbelievably amazing guy. He had gone to Juilliard, for those that know about music schools, a very, very high-end art school. And then he was playing on Stevie Wonder tunes. So if you hear My Cherie Amour, which is a fairly famous Stevie Wonder tune, then my instructor had the bongo part that day. And he taught me how to teach because he hated teaching beginners. And so I was taking lessons with him, and he could tell I was very focused, and I was kind of intense about it, and I really wanted to learn, and I didn't have money. So he said, "Well, listen, if you'll teach some of my beginners, then I'll teach you at the end of the day." So I started teaching like in a couple doors away. They had about 6 practice studios in this music store, and he was teaching in one of them, and I was teaching his beginners. And if anyone lasted, I don't know, 4 to 6 months with me, then they could go practice and work with him. And every day he was kind of showing me, I'd go, I can't, how do I teach somebody this? And he would say, well, how would you do it? He was the best guy for asking me to solve my own problems. He wouldn't, I used to be frustrated by it as a little kid. I mean, I'm 16. I'm trying to learn this stuff myself, and he wouldn't just say, "Well, here's the answer." He'd be saying, "Well, how would you solve that?" Or "What do you think we should do?" And "Oh, really? Okay, I don't know." Then, well, no, what? And he'd force me to create an exercise to solve a problem for somebody. So it is part of my upbringing, and I love being good at things, I guess. And I'm a constant student. I've been just reading my whole life. I love reading. I'm a college dropout, although I did go to a high-end music school here in LA. I dropped out of college in order to move to LA and study with some of the world's best. But so I am a little bit. And then as far as being good at everything, no. I have 100 things I'm terrible at. Come out and see me play pickleball. You'll see. All right, he's a work in progress. But 100 other things I can't. There's a bunch I don't do well, and I'm conscious. I'm old enough no longer to try to do everything well, and just I hire other people. I hire other coaches. I have a pickleball coach because I'm not strong at that, and I want an outside point of view. So I'm really good at getting people around me that are very good.
That's a skill in and of itself. I think being aware of what you are and aren't good at, and knowing when to outsource things is a true talent. So congratulations to you. Talk to us then about your courses you offer. Obviously, Studio One specific. Sorry, I say obviously, but possibly not. Tell us.
Yeah, well, I basically that once again, I'm not the smartest guy in the room sometimes about some things. I had done over 1,000 private lessons with people, helping them, where people were paying me to help them get the tech together. So Studio One and RX are the two tools I was using and still use today. And my adult son came to me about 5 years ago and said, "This is dumb. One, some people can't afford you at your rate. Two, you need to have a video course that does this stuff." And once again, I'm at that age where I learn more from my kids sometimes. It's crazy how much, and all of us parents out there learn this. We get a kid at a certain age, and they're teaching us about subjects that, I used to be the expert in the family about cell phones, for example. I have an adult son, not Donnie, not the one that you might know, but his younger brother has now knows 10 times more about phones. And so last time I got a new phone, it's David. Well, I'm looking at this one and this one and this one. And he's like, this is the one. And then once he says that, I don't have to think about it. So I got him involved with that. So Studio One was my passion. I had done over 1,000 things. And then my son said, let's record something. And now we're into our second generation. So they've been around for about 4 years now. And we did a version and sold a bunch of them. Got a whole lot of feedback, what people liked, what people hated. Nothing's perfect for anybody, no matter how you do it. And then we did a second generation. And the second generation for both Studio One and RX, I'm insanely proud of, because we learned a bunch of things about the first time. And the second generation, I think, is our best. And then now we're on to other things. I mean, but I'm collaborating with people. So I have a course now. The narrator that's got the best start I had ever heard is a gal named Maria McCann. She is brilliant. She lives here in LA. She's an actor. She has an IMDb database that's to die for. Become good friends with her, and she helped us with an auditioning course. And I have another course with my son about mastering conversational reads, and I don't know, he's done 14,000 voiceovers now, and he did a half dozen audiobooks, and then he transitioned to doing voiceovers primarily. My wife's stuck mostly with audiobooks, and she's done 7,000 voiceovers. Both of them do voiceovers, but audiobooks are my wife's passion. My son prefers the voiceover world. And so I've met people, and Maria met her here in LA. She's just brilliant. And so now I'm branching out into other courses that are about performance, because I'm kind of getting back to my roots. Even though people know me for the tech stuff, my roots are the performance. So we're now doing courses. And really, my son was the center of our conversational reads, because as a real-time announcer and as somebody who has to read copy, he's become, he's been doing this 10 years, but he's been sports broadcasting much longer. And so he was on mic 3-4 hours a day for about 8 years in the minor leagues. And he's done some Major League Baseball games, play-by-play as well. But so, yeah, we started with Studio One, did RX, have multiple courses in that stuff. And the goal is, once again, get the tech out of the way. All the courses are not trying to teach people how to be audio experts, because I don't think that's important for most performers. If someone wants to know about it, I'll geek out with them all day long. I do know the details, but I don't think anybody else needs to know that stuff. And I don't know details about my car. I'm a guy, so I think I'm a great driver. Um, but that doesn't mean I know when I press the R button to go in reverse, I don't know every step in that chain that makes my tires go the other way so I can back out of a parking spot. And I don't need to know to be a great driver. I just need to have a reliable car. And I see Studio One and RX as the best tools for narrators, but not the only tools.
No, that's fair enough. So those courses are available on your website. I've put a link to your website at the top of the page, and I must just comment. Dana very kindly put a link to the PreSonus Studio One software that we've been talking about. For those who don't know, I suddenly realized that I never actually introduced you as such. But what we were actually talking about was a digital audio workstation that we use as audiobook narrators to record our books, in case that needed saying out loud. So thank you, Dana, for attaching that link. Don, is that right, that those courses are available through your website? Would that be the best place for people to find them? Don has very kindly put the vojumpstart.com website in the chat as well, which I will copy and put in at the top of the page. Don, I don't know if you've not unmuted, but is this the best place then to find your courses?
Hey, the tech guy doesn't know how to turn the mute on and off. So that's first off. I'm the best at laughing at myself. If you ever hang around with me, you'll see I'm sarcastic, and I make more mistakes than most people, but I learn faster than many people. Although it really is just about I'm not afraid to make mistakes, nor should you be. When people make mistakes, I relate to them. I do think, by the way, so if we ever talk about coaches and people that help, the best people I've run into over my lifetime are people that are also learning themselves so that they relate to the struggles of others. What's very hard is if you sometimes work with somebody that's an expert at something, too often they don't remember the struggle of being a beginner or an intermediate at something, and they just think, oh, that's so easy. And I get frustrated by us coaches that get the word easy and obvious. Those are two different words, and they're two totally different issues. Sometimes something can be brain dead easy, and yet it is not obvious to me or other people. And so, as a coach, it's something I'm very mindful of that, hey, so what if it's easy? That I have to be able to make sure that it's also obvious to everybody else. So, yeah, so there's where we have courses that are, I think they're some of the best in the business, and we get great feedback on them, and we get a tremendous word of mouth. And what it really means is if somebody didn't want to talk to me, they could do all the courses and never talk to me. That's the goal. But I love talking to people.
Thank you. I've pinned that link to the top of the page. So if anybody needs to pull to refresh on your screen, you should see that switch from website to website. Don, talk to us then about your shift into YouTube because you do an awful lot of live video work. And did that begin through the Facebook groups and trying to explain things as you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, well, here's the funniest thing. We're all on Clubhouse here because it's an audio medium, and we're definitely like I'm not dressed very nice today. I'm in a t-shirt and my sweats, and but YouTube. But I just find that a lot of the tech stuff, explaining it through messaging, and since I was on Facebook all the time, people are asking questions, and the questions are just much easier answered when they have a visual. And so I started doing live things in the Facebook groups, and I really just decided it's really dumb. YouTube does a much better job of cataloging it, and then I've been speaking. I've been a coach at the New England Narrators Retreat, and I think you know that guy named Sean Pratt. I don't know if you ever heard of him. And he's sort of, matter of fact, I'm talking to him right when we're done. Him and I'm his tech guy. Anyway, I'm working on some stuff with him right after we're done. About 15 minutes after we finish, I'm working with him. Um, so I'm at the New England Narrator Retreat. Johnny Heller and I, over the last few years, have gotten to know each other pretty well, and we have a good time together. And we decided to start a YouTube thing. But I've been working YouTube for the last few years, but not seriously. I just decided last year I really need to do more, and I need to do everything that I'm doing on Facebook needs to go to YouTube because it does a better job cataloging and allowing people to search and find something. Because hey, I might talk about a subject today because somebody has a question. That that topic does not apply to you until 3 months from now when you have the same issue because you get to the same point and have it. Well, all the stuff I've done on Facebook, I've just done hundreds of videos on Facebook, and they are very difficult to find. Even I know they're there. I know I did something 2 years ago, and somebody asked a question. I think, wow, and I can't find it on Facebook, so I've taken on YouTube now as my home for everything moving forward. I still do a lot of things on Facebook, and I simulcast. I now, and I'm working on LinkedIn as my next place that I'm going to have. But you need visuals for the tech stuff. It just helps get things done much faster. So Johnny Heller and I are doing once a week right now. Ask Us Anything. Sean Pratt was on it. Scott Brick's been on it. It's an amazing set of people and because of Heller's contacts. As a matter of fact, you're going to be on it. I can't remember the date you're on it, but well, I'm going to get to turn the tables on you and be just. Hopefully, I'll be as nice as you about it because that'll be hard for me. But nonetheless, I know you're on in a
I
few weeks.
certainly hope so.
Well, I will be, but Mr. Heller, he can be a taskmaster, and
We
he's a
can't make
super guy.
promises on somebody else's behalf. Let me
That's
let me
correct.
just ask you a question. John Wood, hi John,
Sure.
has asked in the chat. Speaking of RX, besides RX 10 standard, are there any other tools you like, or is everything you use right there?
Nope, there's only two tools that I think everybody needs. They need a great DAW and they need RX. And I would say Audacity and RX, Studio One and RX, Reaper and RX, Audition and RX. If somebody has those two tools, then that's all they need to get everything done for audiobooks, for voiceover. They don't need anything else. And if they, and both, what they really want is a DAW they can automate things that they need to do regularly, in my mind, because they want to cut the time that they're doing. They want to have the best punch and roll that's available. And just one of the things that comes up all the time, yeah, you know, this tool has punch and roll and that tool has punch and roll. Well, everybody has in their town probably a place that has pizza. And just because pizza is available every place doesn't mean that every pizza is great pizza. Some pizza's better than others. And an RX can be used as a plug-in, or it can be used, but people are missing it when they only use it as a plug-in, because, and if they're only using it as a plug-in, they're missing the spectral editing and how well it does that. They're missing instant process, they're missing spectral repair. They're missing the value of having a world-class spectrogram. And there are details about the way the spectrogram works in RX that just blows away everything else, just because it's super sophisticated, but people don't realize that the math behind the scenes is constantly changing based on your zoom level. And the way it does that is, so I didn't understand it at first. And since I know the guy who wrote the code, I was able to, he showed me some things and it's like, gee, oh, no wonder that works so well. Okay, now I see. So anyway, RX and a great DAW. And Twisted Wave is good. So somebody asked about Twisted Wave. But I think for audiobooks, I mean, I can help with that. I don't think that's the best tool for audiobooks. I just think that it's okay for audiobooks. But there is some added value. And here's the weird thing. The good DAWs have templates. And templates are like Insta meals. When I go, there's a place called Trader Joe's in my area. I don't think they have those in the UK. You have Aldi. So they have these, I call them Insta meals, but you can get a decent meal that's in the freezer and you can make it quickly, and you don't have to, I want their orange chicken, and I know nothing about cooking their orange chicken. And so bottom line, most grocery stores will have some meals that when you're in a hurry, you can eat. And some of them are really good from the better stores, and some of them are just okay. There's different quality levels among all that. And with the tools, I just don't think Twisted Wave is the best place for doing audiobooks. But if somebody's doing it, can I help with it? It is funny. I study all the DAWs constantly looking for features, and then I go back to the team, the Studio One team. I go, look, Reaper's got this cool thing. We could really use this. Audacity has this cool thing. Because what really happens is this. Some tools will have 90% of what you want. Nothing has 100%, including Studio One. If you want to hear my complaints about it, I can complain about it. I have 4 or 5 things that I've asked them to adjust, fix, add on. I constantly am scanning to see what the best tools are doing. I do the same thing with RX. There are some couple companies that have come out with some really good noise reduction lately. RX is the best single package. The noise reduction is excellent, but there's been a couple things that have come up in the last year, and I've gone back to them, and they're looking at what they're going to do for the future, and they see what others are doing because of me and many others who are constantly chewing on their ear, going, "How come somebody else has a better tool to do this?" I do that with the Studio One development team. I'm in contact with their lead developer. And so I'm advocating for what us voiceover artists and narrators need out of the products that I use.
Talk to us then about the sorry, Christy has just written, "There goes the audiobook I'm working on now then." Please don't worry, Christy. There is always an answer. So don't fret, and don't throw the towel in just yet. Don, talk to us about YouTube and about all the interviewing, because I again first came across you on YouTube, well, through Facebook videos on your own, talking through different things on Studio One that people were asking about. But then I used to watch you with your son, talking through all the technical queries that you had and things coming up. How has that progressed for you?
Yeah, so I've done podcasts. I just noticed the trend. People do. First off, we're here on Club Deck, or I'm on Club Deck or Clubhouse, and for all the narrators, this is where it makes perfect sense that we all want to hang out here. One, I'm not dressed really super great. I'm my normal daily. I wear a t-shirt and sweats all the time. Um, but even podcasts have really gone to where 30%, 40%, 60%. A lot of them, though, are now doing a visual component. And then there's a lot of people that are on Discord that are doing narration in real time and showing off things. And the visual component is just a big deal. So I embraced YouTube and moving stuff that I would, could discuss, but it's easier to have pictures and videos and screenshots. And so YouTube is a big deal to me. It's my goal is to be the number one recognized voiceover tech guy in the world. Part of it's through, and YouTube is a big part of that vehicle. But it's really, YouTube could fail. I still think that video combined with audio from an instructional and a training point of view, and people want to see people. Um, there's a lot of cues that we get from having the visual, and it's really, let's back up. When we do audio, there's a reason we use a compressor. People don't realize that virtually every audiobook that's gone out there in the background, a compressor is working. Every radio, every commercial they've ever seen, everything that's on TV, on Netflix, there's always a compressor working in the background. Why is that? It's because we work with two senses in order to hear. It's not just our ears to hear. The brain is optimized for the days. I mean, remember, if you go back 100 years, you could not have this kind of conversation where you can only hear me. So the only way I would hear somebody 100 years ago, my grandfather's age, would be I could see them. They were within visual distance. And you can turn off the sound on a TV and you can understand, I don't know, 30%, 60% of what's going on a show. If you know anything about the show, you could watch something on YouTube, you can watch something on a TV, and you can understand. Why is that? It's because when we see people talk, we pick up a bunch of information. And what's really happening when we're listening is we are combining our hearing with our seeing for all the in-person stuff. And that's why video is so powerful, and that's why people would prefer doing a Zoom visual with video than just a phone call. If it's just phone call was the easiest. So in the background, compressors are working because they fill in some blanks and make it easier to understand what someone is saying. And the brain works better and has less effort when a compressor, a good quality compressor, has massaged the audio just slightly. It's almost imperceivable when done right, the difference between a great compressor and no compressor. People don't notice the difference. They just kind of know, hey, Anna sounds comfortable. Anna sounds great. They don't know why, and they don't care. So, for a lot of this audio stuff, people don't know the details, and that's okay. But with the great tools, they'll do a job that make us sound better without us having to do more work.
Which is what we need. So thank you for that. I'm going to ask you a question and then give you a second to think while I talk to the audience. But I'm really curious to know in these last 2 or 3 minutes, the most common issue that you have come up and the best question you've ever had. And to anyone in the audience, if you'd like to raise your hand and come up and chat with us, please do. You've got a couple of minutes left, or write something in the chat. But hopefully this has been hugely entertaining and interesting. I've just pinned to the top of the screen the Red Barnes Audio YouTube link, which I hope holds a lot of the different playlists that Don was talking about just now. So do feel free to go over and investigate that. Don, your most common issue and best question.
The most common issue people get are, how do I transition to something better without interrupting everything that I'm already doing? Everybody, first off, I don't want to learn new things about pickleball on one hand because I want to learn new things about pickleball. I just want to be a great player. I mean, at the best of my ability. I'm not ever going to be a pro. I'm not trying to be a pro. I'm just saying I want to have fun with it, but I don't want to spend my life learning about it on one hand. So people are constantly saying, how do I do all this stuff without having to do more than's needed? But I also want to be hyper competitive. I want to make sure that I get my share of audiobooks. And so my passion is finding ways to help people be more competitive while doing less. And depending on more on the setup and the templates and getting the background in place. I do think it's like anybody that does meal prep where I see my kids do meal prep now because they're working, they're adults, and when they were going to college, they would. I had a son that would cook for a week every weekend because he was a guy and didn't care, and he would meal prep. And I thought that's really interesting. He finally learned, all right, I'm going to invest something on my weekends so that the rest of my week is easier. And that's kind of how I see this whole thing. So people are constantly asking me, how do I do it with less effort? I mean, nobody wants to learn about the tech, and I don't blame them.
And is there an occasion that you remember as the best question for whatever reason that somebody's come to you with?
I can't remember the best question. I kind of know the feel of what their questions are more than a specific question. I think the best question anyone ever asked me is, how come you are such a smart aleck most of the time, and you are also serious about one? So I think they're confused by me. I'm deadly serious about productivity and results, and I'm so flippant and unfiltered about the rest of life and the way I respond to things. Kind of throws people off a little bit, and they're not sure whether I'm for real or not. Anyway, I have a great time. I'm not very serious about myself. I'm very serious about helping others and about productivity. So I have a hard time answering that question as the one question.
No, no worries at all. No, thank you very much. And I think it's true. It must be, um, yes, confusing for people. You mentioned right at the beginning when I asked you what your favorite emoji was, that the reason you have to keep using the winky face is because people don't know quite what to make of you. So, well done you for helping them out with the emoji. It's obviously much needed. Well, I'm going to close up the room here if everybody's happy. Don, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. I usually do a sort of a 40-second wrap up of the room. But it's been wonderful to hear you chatting and telling us so many things I didn't know about you, which is always exciting to hear new things and find out things about people. So thank you very much for sharing this hour with us.
I'm extremely humbled to be here with you, and I look forward now for everyone here. We get to grill Anna in a couple weeks. So go to the YouTube, look in the live section on that site because you'll see the upcomings. And I will post here. I got to post in the room, figure out how to do that when I know that I can't remember the date, and make sure everybody knows we get to grill her, and you're going to get to learn a bunch of great things about her that you did not know. I know you know her well, but we'll have a blast, and you'll get to see her, and that fun is coming up in the next couple of weeks. So I
Yes.
appreciate your
No,
time
thank you.
and you being here.
Thank you very much. Lots of thank yous in the chat. Somebody just raised their hand, and I apologize that we don't have time left. Today we talked to Don Baarns. Thank you very much, Don. My takeaways: go check out vojumpstart.com to see what he offers. Check out his Red Barnes audio YouTube link. I will be on the live on the 9th of January, so would be absolutely thrilled to see lots of you there. Thank you very much to everybody who joined us today. Thank you for joining us, Don. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here on the sofa. It's been a great conversation. And thank you to everybody who contributed with their presence and listening in. Do make sure to have a wonderful week, and let's go out and be our favourite selves.